How have the other events been going so far? I haven't had time to attend, unfortunately, but it looked like there was a decent number of folks coming to join.
Oh, there you have the speed counter. I love that you have a speedrun counter for the presentation.
Yes, I have in fact not practiced this before, so I'm not exactly sure where we're going to clock in, but we will see. We will see. My plan is to leave a little bit of time for Q&A at the end, if people are interested and want to ask questions. I also expect that those who have used the camera dolly are going to find that most of this stuff is fairly straightforward. I'm just going to cover the basics here, but I'll get into it in a couple of minutes. All right, it's 5 after the hour. I think we can probably get started. Anyone else coming in will just have to catch up. So yeah, hello and welcome to Camera Dolly Basics. I will be showing off the tool today. I'll explain what it is and what features it has and what you can use it for during the film jam. I hope the rest of the events have been going well so far. It looked like there was a fair bit of attendance, so happy to see things going well. My name is RazzyMcSnazzy. You might ask, why am I an authority on the camera dolly? It's because I built it. Huzzah. It's been a couple of years since I started working on it, but it finally saw the light of day a couple of months ago, earlier this year, and it is there to use now. One of the primary use cases is filmmaking, so hopefully by walking you guys through some of the things it can do, maybe it can give you some ideas or help a few of the teams with cam ops or in cinematography. Let's see. Let me go through my prep checklist. Turned off YouTube, yes. Turned on stream mode, yes. Put on the proper avatar, yes. So this is the one I usually rock, but today we'll put on the eye candy just for you guys. There you go. That's the good one. So I've built this world. It's a little bit outdated now, but I'm going to be using this to walk you folks through the tool. Let's get started. The actual tutorial begins back here in the hallway. So, introduction. What is the camera dolly? The camera dolly is a tool that allows you to create animations for the VRChat camera right in VRChat. You can create these animations by placing points, and you can then play those animations right there in the app. Right here you see there's a point, and once you've got that set up, the camera will move from one point to the next. Who's it for? The first sort of target group that I built this for was filmmakers, but ultimately it can be used by just about anyone. Streamers, VTubers, world and avatar creators that want to showcase their creations, event streamers, and even photographers to a degree can make use of some of the features in the tool. Let's go over a couple of definitions before we get going. So in this tool, there is the concept of points, and points are essentially keyframes. If you've worked with animation tools before, you'll be familiar with this. A keyframe is one step in the animation that you can set various animation parameters and camera parameters on. We'll go through the what that looks like in a moment. And then there's the concept of paths. A path is essentially one part of an animation back to back. In most cases, you're probably going to use just one path, but there are use cases where you might string together multiple paths. Actually, let me open chat here on the side so I can keep an eye on that. That would be good. Oh, you're right. I didn't start the timer. That is unfortunate. There we go. There we go. Let's just give that a couple of moments to catch up. Noise. Okay, let's see. Right, photographers might also find this useful, but we'll go over what that looks like in a little bit. First, we're going to cover some of the fundamentals, such as UI, and then we'll go over the features, the various settings, and I've got some resources that I'll share later on. And like I said, if there's time, we can do a little bit of Q&A, and any questions that I don't get to during this time frame, I will answer after. Righto. Okay, so we covered points and paths. There's also the concept of anchors. Anchors come into play when you are using a smoothed path with at least 4 points. And once again, I'll get into that once we actually cover what the paths look like. And finally, there's curve points. So if you look over here, the green points in this example are the ones you set. And depending on the path type you use, it will then generate points in between your keyframes. And those I'm going to be referring to as curve points, the in-between points. Righto. Let's keep going. Oh, I don't have my global hotkeys on for the timer. Unacceptable. Well, they should be on. What? Ah, there we go. Alrighty, so the camera dolly lives in the camera menu. You can access it by going to your camera and scrolling to the right and finding the dolly button. That's where it is. It lives right here in this menu, in this rather large menu. Yes, I added a lot of stuff for this particular feature. On the left, you can see various settings and configuration options. On the bottom, you see management buttons that allow you to play and create the animation. And then on the right, of course, you have the sliders that you might use to adjust various camera parameters while you're creating your animation. So the first button is the play button. Right now it's disabled. That's because there's no points. So let's set a couple of points. You position your camera. You can play around with the sliders if you want to. We'll just leave them at the default for now. And you can place a couple of points. There we go. We've got 2. That means we've got a playable path. Let's check out what that looks like. We've got 1 point here. This is the first one. And then the second one is over here. If I now go back into the camera, the play button is enabled. And if I click that, after a short countdown, it will play the animation. And importantly, you can play this animation as often as you want. And this was one of the basic requirements of this tool, is that you can play back the same animation over and over. Because as you guys know, doing a shot is not usually perfect on the first try. So you're going to want to redo that until it's just right. Okay, that already showed off the second button, which is the add button. So the add button creates a new point at the location of your camera. But it doesn't just use the location, it in fact uses all of the parameters. So if I go back to this point I've created here, let's see, zoom for example. Zoom is set to 45. If I go back into my camera and I increase the zoom and I now add another point, you'll see that it used that value to create the point width. So that's creating points. There's other ways you can create points. We'll get into those a little bit later again. By and large, it's fairly straightforward creating points. One little tidbit here is that you can use some of the other camera behaviors, such as look at me, smoothed. And if you use look at me in particular, not only do you get these neat sliders, it will ignore the rotation of points in this case. So it won't use the way that points face. It will in fact keep the look at me behavior intact. Right, next we have the options to clear points, and you've got two here. Clear all and clear last. They should be fairly straightforward. Let's go back to the menu. There it is. Clear last just removes the last point that you created. Importantly, this refers to the last point in the current segment or in the current path that you're in. So if you're working with multiple paths, let's clear all for a moment. If you've got two paths, and I will cover paths in a moment, but if you've got multiple paths, I will go back to number 1 and remove last. That removes the last point in the selected path. Right there. Righto. Oh, I didn't. Yeah. I should probably just end the timer because I'm not actually paying attention to it. That's okay. The presentation is way more important than the funny joke. Right. I'm not going to cover this one. This one actually transitioned out of the camera after a while. So when we added the camera dolly, it came with a whole bunch of other camera features at the time. One of them was the ability to, I guess I am covering it, was the ability to have the audio listener attached to the camera instead of your avatar, essentially creating camera ears, allowing you to hear at the point of the camera. But that eventually transitioned out of the camera dolly submenu and is now available anywhere. Right, what else do we have? Like I said, this world is slightly outdated. I have to actually go and update it. Did I cover clear all? Yeah, clear all just deletes all of your points. It should be fairly straightforward and self-explanatory. You've got a couple of advanced options here. Export, if you have a few points set. You can click export and that will save the points to a JSON file on your computer that you can later use to do stuff. And I will cover OSC once we get to it. But as you can see, when you export, you've got two options. You can export the paths relative to the world origin or your local avatar. Because there's two types of animations. You might want an animation that is very specific to a world, very specific to a certain situation, probably more appropriate for the filmmaking folks, but there's also local coordinate space animations, and in this case the animation is exported with the positions and rotations relative to your avatar at the moment you export it. And that might be more desirable when you're making an animation around a specific avatar, when you're making an avatar showcase, for example. Yeah, exporting that will export the JSON file into your local documents folder. Likewise, you can import a path. I'm not going to show it here, but it will just bring that path right back. And whether a path is local or world space is embedded in the JSON file, so you don't have to worry about it here. All you have to do is paste in the path, and you should be good to go. Finally, there's the show paths toggle, and when you let me just disable look at me here for a second. The show paths toggle allows you to see the paths while you're animating. So usually when you've got a path, an animation ready to go, and you play it, the points disappear. You can't see them while you're playing the animation. if this is, well, the one thing you can see is the camera. The camera will stay visible. However, if you've got this toggle enabled and you play, then the points themselves will remain visible. Not the line renderer in between, but the individual points will stay visible, which if you're using more points, becomes a little bit easier to see. Right, maybe one button I forgot is while you're playing an animation, the play button is replaced by a stop button, and obviously that just allows you to stop the running animation. Righto, I think that's everything for the menu. Let's keep going. Split. Is it going to split? There we go. Okay, the next topic is the point menu, and that is a slightly different menu. You've already seen it. The point menu is the menu that you get when you create a point. I'm going to bring my camera over here, create a point, and let's look at this. So there's a couple of things you got here. First, you got a button to delete the point if you don't like it. And then you've got a whole bunch of sliders, and these are all of your camera parameters, all of the things, the parameters that live on the camera that you can animate. There's the motion, and this one is either speed or time-based. You've got zoom and depth of field related sliders. You've got look at me offsets, and you've got the green screen sliders. I don't know in what case you would want the green screen sliders, but they were something I was able to add, so it's there. Use it if you want to. Right, the other things you can do here are position and path indices. Okay, let's clear all, and I'll show you what these refer to. Let's make one path over here, and another over here. So we've got three points per path. Over here's the first one, so we've got point 1, point 2, and point 3. And what the first section here, the position, allows you to do, it refers to the position of the point within the path. So right now this is the first point, this is the second. If I wanted to switch these, if I wanted this to become the first one, and this the second one, then I could switch these around like so. And now the path starts here, goes there, and over here. You can use this, for example, to reverse a path. Let's say you've created an animation and you're not quite happy with it, or maybe you want to start front to back. You can use this to reverse a path. There's probably other use cases that I haven't memorized off the top of my head, but that is what that section does. Likewise, the path position down below refers to what path a point is part of. So right now, this point is part of the first path. If I switch that over, then it becomes part of this path. Why this looks different now, we'll get to in a moment. This is now an anchor. But yeah, that's what these little things let you do. Finally, there is copy to camera. So this button allows you to bring the camera back to a point. Let's say I have my camera right here, right now. If I wanted to bring it back to this point, I could click this button, go back into my camera, and the camera is now positioned at the point with zoom and other slider values copied back to the camera. Righto, I think that's everything to cover here. All right, let's keep going. How am I on time? 12 minutes in. Okay. Path management. So let's get into the fun stuff. The fun stuff starts in the next room. But this is good because this is how you're actually going to use the camera dolly, the how-to, if you will. So if you're adding points, there's two ways to add points. One is just with the add button, right? You go in here, you create a couple of points, and you get your path. And that'll be the first way to add points. But let's say you have these points, and actually you want another one right in between. Well, guess what? You can click them, and there you go. There's another point right here. It just appears out of nowhere, and even better is it's a pickup. You can pick it up. You can move it wherever you want. Obviously, this is a little bit more usable in VR, but you can also use it in desktop mode. So that's two ways you can add points, either at the end or anywhere in between. Right. Was there anything else here? No, I think that's about it. Next is editing points. One way to edit points is here with the sliders. You can do this, slider slide. And you can pick the points up, like I already mentioned. Like so, you can rotate them. What is happening here? You can rotate them. Not ideal on desktop, but it works. Yeah, you can also do this via OSC, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I don't think OSC is going to be a super big aspect of this unless you're looking to save paths in between sessions. Right, next, right, one thing I forgot is while you've got a point picked up, like so, you can click the left mouse button. I don't know why it's glitching on me here. You can click the left mouse button to freeze the position. And when you've done that, it will only modify or only edit the rotation. So if you've got the right point or the right position for a point, but you want to fine tune the way it's turned, you can use that. You click again to unfreeze, and then it'll update the position again. Finally, if you double click deletes the point. So there's a couple of ways you can delete the point. You can either click the button, you can double click use while you've got it picked up, or you can go into your camera menu and click one of the clear buttons. Righto, so we've got adding points, editing points, removing points, and finally paths. I've already showed this to you, so the concept of paths is such that they are separate contiguous parts of the animation. And you edit them with this little element up here. So right now I'm on the first path. If I want to make another, I'll just click to the right. There, I'm now in the second one. There you go. Now I've got one path right here and another over there. And if I now click play, then you'll notice that first it animates along the first path, and it then skips right to the second one. Okay, let's keep going. I'm going to probably hold for questions till the end. If you have any questions now, feel free to post them, and I'll answer them as I see them come in. Right, now we're starting to get into the settings, the configurations here on the right, or on the left rather. So path we've already sort of covered, there's more to it, but that's the basics. The next one is motion control, and the motion control refers to what value drives your animation. There's two possible options. The first one is time, in which case your animation is driven by a duration value. And the next one is speed, in which case it uses your fly speed value. Now you've got the time-based motion is selected by default. And what that does is it shows you this duration slider. Now here's the first sort of way that you can see that this is the first time I've built something like this, because the duration slider is not completely intuitive. What it does is it takes all of the durations of all the points you've created, it sums them up, and then it averages them. And that is how long it takes the camera to get from one point to the next, which is not great, but that is the way it is right now. So if I've got all of my point duration set to 2 seconds, then it'll take exactly 2 seconds for the camera to move from one point to the next. We can show this off by creating a new path. And you can watch this little timer here. It should end right on 2 seconds. There you go. Right, the next one. Wait, is there anything else I wanted to say about time-based? Right. When you are using a time-based motion, you get one more setting, and that's the easing setting. Now, easing I'll cover in a room further down, but you only get this option when you've selected time-based motion control. If you switch to speed, that option goes away, because when you're using speed-based motion control, you can create your own ease curves. So right now, let's say I'm going to start at 3 here. I'll make 2 points here. I'm going to go way up. I'm going to go way down. I'm going to end way high again. So if I play it like this, then you'll see it should use the fly speed, and you'll see the slider update in real time as the animation plays out. Maybe this is more intuitive for some of you. Maybe time-based motion is more intuitive. It's really up to you. There is some features that are not available with speed-based motion, such as multi-streaming, and there was one more. Maybe it's just multi-streaming, but that's the idea of speed-based motion. Righto. Next is path types. Okay, yes, it's starting to get interesting now, because now we're starting to get into a topic that really lets you create animations that are hopefully aesthetically pleasing and create smooth and fun camera movement. So the path type for the mathematicians is the interpolation. It describes how the actual path that the camera travels is fitted in between or among the points that you create. By default, it uses the fitted path type, which is a B-spline interpolation, for those of you who might be interested. But you also have the loose path type, which is a Catmull-Rom interpolation, and the linear path type, which has absolutely no smoothing. It is straight from one point to the next. Now, one thing about smooth paths is, yeah, you don't have to know the math behind unless you want to. I personally find it really interesting, and I'm going to post a link in the resources later, but obviously you don't have to know any of this. Ultimately, all you have to know is that these paths look slightly different, and you might want to play with what each of them looks like. One thing to note, though, which is also not super intuitive for new users, is that fitted and loose are slightly different from linear. Fitted and loose need at least 4 points. And if you have any less than 4 points, it will default to linear. So right now I've got 2 points, and even though I have the loose path type selected, it's using a linear type because I have less than 4 points. And that's because the smooth paths just don't work with less than 4 points. Don't ask me why. The mathematicians tell me that's just how it is, and that's how it's implemented. So let's go ahead and make 2 more points. And once we've made the 4th point, you'll see that, oh, something changed. Okay. Now the path looks way different. We've got the curve points here in the middle with the points we created, and the first and last one, they look different. And that's because they've become anchors. The anchor changes how the start of your path behaves. So let's see if I can show this off. Let's make a new one, a new path that shows this off a little bit nicer. Make a nice big midsection. Okay, we have a midsection and 2 anchors. So if I now pick this anchor up and move it, you'll see the start of this path begin to change. Is it actually showing it off? Kind of hard to see on here, isn't it? Yeah. Should have probably thought about how I show this off beforehand, but you can kind of see that it curves here towards the end, right? Just a little bit. So the anchors do actually have an impact on your path. However, they are not part of your path anymore, and that's why they look different. So the camera in this instance will start here. This is now your first point, and the anchor is no longer part of the path. This is something that trips up a lot of people and something that I've been meaning to address. Alas, I haven't had the bandwidth or time to do so, and that's why I figured I should call it out here. Once you have anchors, the anchor is no longer part of the animation. Right, okay, let's get to the actual path types. So you've got the fitted path type, and fitted, as I said, uses B-spline interpolation and fits the points the path in between your points. Go ahead and make one. I'm going to go ahead and make a nice little square, just like the example there. Let's see, that should be just about right. There we go. So you've got the 4 points you've just set, and the actual animation path is now in between here. It's nice and smooth. That's the nice thing about fitted path types, is that it's very smooth compared to the other ones. But it doesn't go through the points you've created, and that might be confusing. You might think, well, if I create an animation and I set a point here, I want the path to go through that point. And that's exactly what the Catmull ROM path is for. So if I switch to the loose path type, the path now goes through the points you've set. It is slightly less smooth, and you might notice that as the camera animates, but it should still be fairly smooth. Smooth enough for camera shots anyways. Finally, the linear type has absolutely no smoothing. It doesn't have curve points, and it goes through all the points, including the first one and the last one, because there is no anchors with linear paths. It just goes straight from one point to the next. Let's see, what are anchors used for then? Temporarily remove a point in case we want it back later, or adjust the path interpolation without making it an actual point. So the anchors are a necessity at the moment. They are something that just exists due to how the math works. And if you move a point, it will change how the start of your path is shaped. Now, when I built this, I figured, I'm in linear, I figured I would leave this intact in case you want this capability to shape the path exactly the way you want it to be. Right? If I wanted to give it a bend like so, I would move the anchor over here, and if I wanted to create sort of an S-shaped curve, then I would move this anchor over here, and then that creates a sort of, curvature, even though we just have 2 actual in-between points. There's definitely better ways to handle this. Like I said, this was the first time I've built something like this, and this whole project, the Camera Dolly, started as a jam that wasn't exactly designed and planned out well from the start. So a lot of this stuff just sort of evolved over time. And as we get feedback on cannies and such, whenever there's bandwidth, I will be working on improving things, and or someone else might. And that is happening. There's things being added. I honestly don't know if I can talk about that. I should probably have checked with comms before. But there is stuff in the pipeline that should be coming out soon. Right. Okay, we covered the paths. And like I said, I have a resource link, a video by Freya Holmer that I used to learn about this stuff myself. That is like an animation video on YouTube that really nicely explains how all of this stuff works. If you're curious about that sort of thing, let's move on. Oh my goodness, I'm already half an hour in. Okay, let's definitely move on. Split. Still on PB track. Very good. Okay, we are on the looping hall. Let's do looping. Looping is a pretty straightforward one. So if you want your animation to play and loop, you can do that with the looping setting. And there is 3 different kinds of ways you can loop your path. The first one is repeat. And for repeat, it just goes right back to the start. Why is it so slow? Yeah, so it just goes right back to the start. The next one is... Oh, I'm on speed, that's why. There we go. The next one is reverse, and with reverse, it changes direction. It reverses direction, if you will. Wording is not my strong suit, I'll tell you that, but I think in this case it makes sense. So it reverse just goes back and forth. It ping-pongs, if you will. And then an interesting one, the last one, is called revolve. And what revolve will do is that it will connect the end of your path back to the beginning. So this is the path we've created right now. It goes from here to there with an anchor over here and the start anchor over there. If I now select revolve looping, it will have formed a sort of, I don't know, an egg sort of path. Yeah, so the start is now interpolated, is smoothed back to the beginning, and you've got a smooth kind of circle going. One interesting thing about looping is that when you play a path with looping, it will play indefinitely. If you want it to stop, just hit the stop button. But it doesn't stop on its own. What else? Right, and also when you have a loop type set, you cannot use a capture type. So I'll get to capture next here, but essentially what capture does, it either lets you record a video or take photos while you're animating. And if you're looping indefinitely, that is disabled because that is a really good way to get you to crash your computer by filling up your hard drive. So that's not allowed right now. Okay, let's move on. Capture. Split. Okay, let's capture the next setting here. This one allows you to capture your animation in one of three ways. One moment, there's a question. Looping doesn't go through each path, just the current one. No, it does go through all the paths. It will play each path, so it'll go to path 1, path 2, path 3, and then it'll loop back to the start with repeat, or in reverse, it'll go path 3, path 2, path 1. And for revolve, each individual path is looped back to the start. There's certainly different permutations of that behavior that could be implemented. I don't exactly know that is much of a request at the moment, but if it ever gets traction on Canny or whatever, that is certainly something we could look at. Are there plans to add more in-depth controls for interpolation between points? Not currently. Let me know if you have something specific in mind. There might be a Canny that I'm aware of. But if you have specific ideas about how you want to do smoothing for your paths, let me know. Any chance there's a VR instance made after the lecture so we can get hands-on experience as a group? So I thought about how to do this presentation, and I figured let's not get everyone into VR because this stuff isn't networked. You can't see my points. You can't see my paths. And it is a VRC Plus feature. I should have probably said that at the start. This is a VRC Plus feature. Not the way it was designed or built, but that is what happened in the end. And this, I guess, in part, this is for you. If you don't have VRC Plus, then this gives you an idea of what this tool might be about and what it can do for you potentially. Righto. Okay, let's keep going here. Capture type. Right, capture type allows you to capture the animation in one of three ways: photo, emoji, or video. So if I create an animation here, say 3 points, so that's 4 seconds, and I switch to capture type photo, then I get this new slider, photos per second. And that goes from 0.1, I think is the minimum value, to 2. So the most you can take is 1 photo every half second, and that is done on purpose. Because again, we don't want your hard drive to fill up too quickly. I have tested this with all the way up to 100 photos per second. It works, but it's just not something we want to give you the option to do right now because it's just, yeah, let's not do that. But yeah, if I now play this, you get a little warning here that keeps playing during the animation, and it takes takes pictures. They go into my photo library, and I can look at them there. Might be good for, say, event photography. If you're hosting an event and you want to take lots of pictures, but you don't necessarily want to focus on them, maybe you set up a long animation and you have this feature, the photo capture, enabled so that it takes photos for you. The next one is let's cover emoji first. So emoji is very similar. except it creates a 16 frame emoji during the animation. So it takes exactly 16 pictures spaced out evenly, and when you're done, it opens the emoji editor, and I can create an emoji here. Done. Pretty neat. I don't know that a lot of people have used this, but it's there. It's a possibility. I think it's cool. I don't know how much usage you're going to get out of that as filmmakers, but just something to be aware of. Finally, video. Video is an interesting one. So yes, you can record video in VRChat. Right in VRChat, it will record an MP4 of your animation. Again, you get this little pop-up here. It might stutter a little bit the first time it kicks off, but it should be good thereafter. And this records at 30 frames per second. We could potentially go up to 60 in a future update, but right now it's locked at 30. And one thing to note is that you have to choose between the audio source, mic or world. The mic option will record your own microphone, regardless of whether you mute it or not, because it just goes straight to your microphone hardware. And world will record the audio of everything else. That is unfortunately a technical limitation right now. Unity is really picky about audio, and I'm not an audio specialist. The video plugin we're using to record video doesn't have this capability integrated. So right now, this is unfortunately how it is. You can't do both. Yeah, you got to pick. We might fix that in a future update. But right now, that is the reality of recording video in VRChat. Okay, I see some questions. Or one question: is recording in-game worse? If you're recording for the Film Jam, if you're on PCVR, I would highly recommend going through OBS or what have you to record in the highest quality possible. I think there's guides on settings and whatnot to get the highest quality recordings. If you're on Quest and you have no other option, yeah, absolutely use this. The quality is not going to be as great as what you can get elsewhere, but it is an option. Right, I see people typing. Do I wait a second? Yeah, okay. What are some of the technical details behind the MP4 internal recording features, such as bitrate, audio codec, method of bitrate? You know what? I could go into the code and check for you. I don't have that info handy at the moment. I'm gonna keep that for after, and then I can tell you the details exactly. So I'm gonna note this down. Questions. There we go. Okay, I'm going to answer this one after. All right, I'm at 36 minutes already, so oh my goodness, I'm going to keep rushing ahead here. Easing. Okay, easing is a good one. It's fairly straightforward too. So if I have a time-based animation, by default, it just moves from point A to point B with the given duration. However, you can ease that animation, and easing is a way to apply a curve to the speed at which your camera travels. Let's see, where's easing? Easing is up here. So if I have an in ease, an in sine ease, or let's do an in expo ease, so it's easier to see. The camera should start slowly and then speed up towards the end. And if I have an out ease, it'll do the opposite. It'll start fast and then slow down towards the end. And if I have an in-out ease, it does both, starts and ends slow and speeds up in the middle. So there's exactly 3 different types of easings. There's the in ease, the out ease, and the in-out ease. And then the other words in that menu are just different intensities. So it starts at sine, then it goes to quart, and it goes all the way up to expo. And then there's also bounce, which does like a little bouncy motion at the end of the animation. You can play around with those. Maybe they'll help you create shots that are a little bit more smooth at the start and end if that's what you're going for. Okay, not seeing any questions. Going to keep going. I forgot to split. That's okay. Bonk. Okay, stream type. Okay, stream type is an interesting one. Again, I'm not super sure how much you're going to use this for filmmaking, but I think it's really cool. So by default, the way paths behave is like so. The camera travels in order along your paths. However, you can switch to multi-stream. And what that does is that it creates up to 4 cameras that will play at the same time. And each of those has a spout stream center. So spout, if you don't know, you can go to camera mode, you can enable stream mode, and enable the spout stream toggle. And what that does is that it sends a spout stream locally on your computer that applications like OBS with a plugin can receive. It's definitely higher performance than, say, doing a regular screen capture. Spout is just local, it's just on your computer, but it's extremely performant. And that is what you can do. So once you've got multi-stream set up, you can then go into, say, OBS or wherever and receive up to 4 different spout streams. And you can do, people have done a ton of interesting things with this already. But you could, for example, record the same shot from 4 different angles simultaneously. The way to do that is to go, let's show you. Let's go into the Dolly menu, clear all. Where am I? I'm out of bounds. There we go. So let's make one right here, another right here, third one there, and we'll do one up here. Okay, I've got 4 paths. I've got streaming set to multi. I'm going to play this, and let's see. If I look around, I should be able to see. All right, 1 second. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that the space of your anchoring matters. If you've got it set to world, the animation will play in place, regardless of you moving. If you've got it set to anything else, the animation will move with you. And that, if you see the animation moving with you and you don't know why, it might be that. It's kind of confusing. I kind of don't like having this setting outside of the Dolly menu, because you have to go outside of the Dolly menu to change how the Dolly behaves. But that is what is happening there. Right, okay, back to multi-streams. So let's go to world, and we're going to turn on repeat or loop so it's easier to see. Okay, so we've got 4 cameras now. There's one here with bounce ease, of all things. One there, one over here, and one up there. And let's see, if I go into my OBS and I enable this, can you guys see this? That's the 4 different streams coming in right now. Yeah. Okay, back to this one. Okay. Any questions? I don't think so. Okay, gonna move on. OSC support. Okay, I don't know that I have to say much here. I highly doubt that folks are going to make their own OSC tools for the Film Jam, but you do have the capability to use OSC tools with the Camera Dolly, and there is a couple of tools out there that I'm going to link to you after this presentation. So OSC can do a number of things. It can play an animation. It can play an animation with a delay, and it can do the import and export functionalities. So you can get one of these external programs if you want to, and you can say save an animation, because that's not something that the VRChat allows you to do right now. You can't save an animation in game at the moment. So one thing you could do is, create an animation, go to export that. Okay, now you have that animation. You can bring it back in with import, and that is something you can do with OSC, with these external programs. Again, I will link them after. Don't know that I have to spend more time on this right now, but wanted to mention it anyways. Okay. Miscellaneous related changes, yes. So when this went live, a whole bunch of other things went live as well that maybe you've, depending on how new you are to VRChat, maybe that's just how you know it, or maybe you remember these things going live. But we didn't used to have a fly speed slider. So the fly speed slider, just changes how fast the camera moves. You can move quick if you set it high, and you can move very slow if you set it low. Likewise, if you the turn speed, if you set that high, you can turn real fast or it can turn real slow. And maybe that's something that can help you get that perfect shot, if that's something you're doing. It also works for smoothing. If I go to smooth, you get the smoothing strength slider. So by default, this is sort of the strength of smoothing that's applied. If I set that real high, it kind of takes a lot longer for the smoothing to run out. And if I set it real low, then it becomes snappier. There's still a little bit of smoothing, but not as much. Camera distance is probably a good one. So by default, the camera can only move away from you, your avatar, 15 meters. But once you've opened the camera dolly, so currently this is dependent on you opening the camera dolly menu at least once. Once you've done that, now the camera can move away 10 times as far. Okay, what else? Covered that. Point limits. Point limits is a good one to go over. So you can't create unlimited amounts of points. You do have unlimited amounts of paths, but you are limited to how many points you can create. And that depends on your platform. So on Windows, you can create at most 100 points and 50 per path. So you can say create 2 paths with 50 points each, or 4 paths with 25 points each. But it can't go over 100, and that is mostly because the math that runs when you've got, say, a fitted path is quite expensive. The more points you have, and if that number goes too high, your game will crash. So that is why there's a limitation there. And on Quest, it's half for both. 50 in total, 25 per path. Right. Right works with Spout Stream. I think that's all I wanted to cover. Let me check my notes here on the side. Oh, right. Another thing I wanted to show you is overlapping points. So you might have shots that are just a zoom in, or maybe a pan, for example. If I have a point here and I just wanted to pan over there, well, now these points are in the exact same point, in the exact same position. And that's why in this specific case, the menus are offset. So when 2 points are in the exact same position, the menus are offset so that you can interact with both of them. If they're even slightly off, that offset is not applied. So in this case, they're like super close together, which makes it kind of hard to interact with a specific point. You have to kind of position yourself just right. But yeah, if they're in the exact same position, then they're offset. Oh, right. Another good thing that we put in is that so by default, how fast the zoom is animated, or how fast the zoom changes, is smoothed as well. You can see if I really quickly move this up, it doesn't immediately snap to the new zoom value. It's smoothed. However, if you're playing a camera dolly animation, this smoothing is reduced. So if you want to, say, make a crash zoom, that should theoretically be possible. Let's see if I can show that off. I haven't tested this. Maybe I can. So if I make a really short point with zoom here and then zoom there, does that work? Oh, right. I should probably just, let's clear the other points first. That would be helpful. And maybe don't ease. There we go. Okay, I don't know what, oh, right. That's because I have, okay. Looping. One more time. Okay. So you can kind of see it here. The smoothing that the zoom slider uses should be much reduced, right? It goes immediately to the value. Okay, let me check for questions. Is there a preset library with JSON files? Good thing you ask. I made one, and I'm going to share it after this presentation. It's not in VRChat at the moment, but I have it on a GitHub repo that I'm going to share. How do you fly to get the camera in the sky? Let's see. I'm not sure I'm following the question completely, but once you've opened your Dolly menu, at least once, that's when you get the increased camera distance. And so if I increase my fly speed and I just go up, it'll let me go much further out than it usually would. Usually you'd be stuck at about, I don't know, say here, maybe ish. On in VR, you'll have a fly mode toggle. On desktop, you can just hold your middle mouse button and you can fly around. I think they meant editing the points that are set in the sky. That is an excellent question. That is not possible unless you play space to the points right now. So that is one of my biggest gripes with the existing system. One that I have potential solutions for. I just have not gotten around to implementing them yet. I've been playing with the idea of having a central menu that lists all of your points and allows you to edit them sort of in place, so you don't have to be in front of the actual points. But that's not there at the moment. So yeah, you right now you have to play space to them. If that's not an option, then you have to just remove the point and recreate it. Not great, but that is what it is. Did I miss any questions? Yeah, I think that was a good question for sure. Yeah, I know the canny that there's actually multiple cannies that ask for editing faraway points, and there's proposed solutions that just not something that's been done yet. Right. Okay. I think that's all I had. Audio from camera. I think I showed audio from camera. It's a toggle right here. This one might be interesting for filmmakers as well. So right now, if you're recording, you will hear sound and other people speaking in the world at the location and rotation of the camera, which can be confusing because it sounds like you've moved to a different location when you haven't. So it's a little bit it's just a little bit weird at first, but it can be useful for filming. Right. Portrait. You can also use the camera dolly in portrait if you want. I think for this film jam, it's a requirement to go into landscape. If I remember the rules right, so probably not applicable here, but just wanted to mention it. Went over limit sliders. Yeah, that's about it. And we are 51 minutes in. Cool. I've got resources. I don't need to cover them here. I'm going to send them to the chat. So yeah, if you have any other questions or feedback or comments, now's your time. Will we maybe get an option that instead of changing the first and last points to anchor points, it automatically adds additional points as anchor points? If I create my first point, I'd like it to stay in my first point. That's a good question. There's various things that we've played with for how to do that. And one option would be to just infer them, to not show you anchors at all. Just assume that there's a start and end anchor that is exactly in the first and last point's place. And maybe we'll end up adding something like an advanced toggle sort of thing that either shows you the anchors or doesn't. We haven't. Yeah, there's not a lot of traction on getting that fixed at the moment. It's something I'm aware of, and I know that confuses a lot of people that first look at the camera dolly. So yeah, nothing planned at the moment, but it is on our radar. By any chance, a workshop on the drone to use in the world? I am not the person to talk about the drone. That would be other folks. I am horrible at flying the drone. So probably not this time around. I can ask the folks that are more involved with the drone if they would be game doing one of these, but no promises. Can the audio from camera feature be different for headset audio and spout stream? Can the audio from camera feature be different for headset audio and spout stream? I'm not completely sure I follow on this one, but the answer I think is no. So all that audio from camera does is it moves the audio listener. There's only ever one audio listener, and it moves it to the camera. Usually it's attached to your head. That's why I used to call it the camera ears. But in this case, it gets attached to the camera, and I think if you're flying the drone, you can also do that. Right. Drone. Yeah, so the drone also gets audio from camera, but all it does is attach the audio listener. So Unity's fun. Unity has this restriction where you can only ever have one audio listener. You can't say have one on your head and the camera. That's just not possible. And that is essentially why video capture audio is so tricky too. But yeah, all it does is move that one audio listener around. Okay, just trying to catch up here. Does Avatar need to be in one place for the path to work correctly, or is it dependent on the anchor? I think what you're referring to here is the this anchor, so the lens space, you can also call it. This does affect how the camera behaves, or the path, I should say. If you've got either default or local selected, the camera animation will move with you. Right? Let's say I've got one right here, and I want to play that with reverse, and I've got but not so fast. Why is it so fast? No. That's fine. Okay. One more time. We've got an animation here. We're going to play it with loop reverse, 2 seconds, and we've got the world anchor selected. If I now close the camera dolly should keep playing, and it'll stay in place. I can move around, and the path won't move with me. It'll just stay static in the world. If I do that again, but this time I'm going to select local, it'll move with me this time. Right, so I can move around, and the camera is going to keep doing its thing. This can be confusing because, again, this setting exists outside the camera dolly menu, which is very confusing, but that is where it is right now, and it's a good thing to be aware of. Okay, let's see. I'm tempted to edit the JSON paths by hand. Any recommendations? You can absolutely do that. That is why this information is encoded as JSON, so that it's human readable, and you can go in and make hand adjustments. That is excellent. That's something you can do for sure. Okay, I'm gonna keep looking through here. Did you basically work on the dolly alone? Yes, for about 1.5 years. I did the engineering and the design, although I did have a focus group of folks who were kind of educating me about filmmaking and requirements and things that filmmakers needed. For no particular reason, you should all go thank one Astral Melodia, which is here in the chat, I think. No, she already left. Go thank her. Yeah, I had a focus group of folks educating me about filmmaking and camera usage because, unlike you, I don't consider myself a filmmaker. I just make the tool that you guys can use, and that is hopefully that's good. Hopefully, it's useful. I think it's useful. There's a lot of positive feedback, so I think folks find it useful. After that 1.5 years, we eventually managed to get design support and QA did a fantastic job just going through so many different edge cases and finding so many bugs. Because you look at something like this for so long in isolation, you start to lose the forest for the trees. So yeah, it's been really good getting that support eventually. Oh, I also chatted with so the original inspiration for this was I joined the team after EAC dropped. I know EAC mentioned. Oh my god. But one of the missing pieces from back then was that there was an implicit or explicit promise to supply natively the tools that were lost with mods, and there was the camera animations mod that a lot of folks used, and there was no replacement. And I know that other community-made avatar tools have come out in the meantime, although I started work on this way before any of that. So yeah, I just figured when I started, this started in one of these jams. So twice a year we have these jam weeks where you basically get to do a hackathon on whatever project you want. And since I joined VRChat sort of through the filmmaker community, I figured I'd work on something to give back, and this is eventually what it evolved into. But it was stuck in what I call jam limbo, where the project was essentially workable and shippable, but it just didn't get enough approval from the execs and decision makers. So it just kind of sat there, and I just kind of kept improving it until eventually it caught enough traction that we were able to ship it. Right now, there's not a lot of bandwidth for me to make improvements. And tweaks. I am still doing stuff with it, but other things are coming first at the moment. That doesn't mean I'm not following. I am looking at the canny and keeping feedback in mind. And you'd be surprised how much of the feedback has already been workshopped, where there's potential solutions. It's just the bandwidth to implement those solutions just isn't there right now. But it's on my radar. I see you. Okay, I think I've been rambling here for a while into the ether. So I'm going to go ahead and post my links here. There we go. Oh, do I need the embeds? Probably not. There. For the OSC tool, if you haven't seen it already, the tool number 1 here by doing is really good. I've used it myself. It's excellent. Really good for saving and loading camera paths on the fly. There's the world that I'm in right now is linked here. When this first came out, we did a quick tutorial video that's posted on YouTube, which is basically a short version of what we just went through. There's a section on the wiki I wrote. What else? Right, the GitHub link down here is a very simple collection of paths. You can probably do better, but these are sort of the paths I used while testing and developing the tool. And then the last link is the math interpolation deep dive, which I personally find really interesting. Maybe you do too. Yeah, that's it. That's all. If you have any more questions, still post them. I think we covered everything. Wait, except the video recording details. That one I'm going to have to go look up, and I will address it after. Okie dokie. I'm going to stop sharing now. Thanks all.
Thank you so much, Razzy. This is super great to have this explanation direct from one of the people that helped work on this. And yeah, thank you so much. Really great presentation.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to all of the amazing entries y'all are going to work on. Very excited.
Yeah. Can't wait to see how people use this.